Hey, I'm Chase McDaniel here at American Songwriter, and if you want to hear the story behind my new album, Lost Ones, check it out at americansongwriter.com.
Well, thank you so much, Chase, for joining us here at American Songwriter.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here. Hard. I don't like being vulnerable. I think if someone were to see, how I present myself on stage, on social media, to the fans, and in my music, they would think, well, this is just, this guy likes being vulnerable. No, I don't. I hate it. It's hard. It requires going back into the dark over and over and over again, and that's not fun. But I have a mission. That I feel is laid upon my life. It is a purpose for me to keep doing that because it might help somebody else. I struggled for a long time and had no lifelines. I had nobody to talk to. I had no mentors that had experienced this specific thing. And I craved that. And so I thought if I could be that for someone else, that it might make a difference. I'm sharing those deeply personal stories, struggles of mental health, struggles of addiction, growing up in a home that had been, squandered with addiction. I was raised by my grandparents. I watched them lose a son to an overdose. And they gave me everything that a kid should have, unconditional love. They taught me to be curious and go chase my dreams, and I ran with that. But that being said, the home was just bombarded with grief. And so I didn't know, growing up in Greensboro, Kentucky, what things like depression and anxiety or, any kind of psychosis, anything like that. I didn't know what that was. So when it struck my mind and it took over my life, it was a shock to my system, and I didn't have any resources of where to go. So, I was taught to be a tough guy, and I kept it in as long as I could until I self-destructed. It's a great question. I think at the end of the day, although the album is deeply autobiographical, it's not about me. When I go on stage in front of the people that have found my music and have connected with it, I see a lot of commonalities and I hear a lot of common stories. And I think that this album is far more for them than it ever was about me. It has just given me the reason to make it, like I said, it's hard to be vulnerable. It's hard to throw your stuff out there, and I don't want to. But these wonderful fans have given me a reason to. And I think Lost Ones kind of came to me. I don't know where it came to me. I had this title in my book called, The Lost Ones Always Find Me. I didn't know what it was about yet. But I just kept hearing this familiar story over and over again that seemed to deeply resonate with me. And I think until I embarked on this journey of sharing my music with other people, I thought maybe I'm the only person in the world who's ever felt like this. And I was just proven wrong over and over again. And so I think instead of just me being the lost one, I think, we are the lost ones, which is kind of how it ended up.
Yeah.
There's so many things I would say to that kid. I would try to remind him of his strength. I think at that point, like anytime that somebody's at the point of wanting to end their existence, and this might just be me, but I've talked to several people who felt the same way. It wasn't that I ever wanted to die. It was I didn't want to feel like this anymore. I didn't want to feel so miserable anymore. And I thought that ending my life was the only way to exit that misery. And when you feel like that for so long, it just wears you down, your strength. It feels like you get weaker and weaker over time. But I think what was actually happening is that I was becoming stronger and stronger every day that I stood up to fight. And so I think that if I could go back and talk to that kid again, luckily I don't have to. There was somebody that was able to do it for me. And he did it way better. He just grabbed me, made sure I was safe first, and then talked to me later. And I think that was probably the best thing to do. But I think I would say, imagine what it would be like to not have to feel like this anymore. Not because you're dead, but because you won. You beat this. And at the time, I didn't think that was possible. I thought my brain was just so sick that it just There's no way to ever feel normal again. And now I know that to not be true, but when you're in it, that feels irrational to think that way. It's signing up for life. Like, it's, I think when I was pulled back over, and in the moment, I just had this conversation with God, and I didn't even know if I believed in anything anymore. Life had felt so unreal for so long. And I had tried to connect, and there was just nothing. There was just over and over again, just darkness. And it was like the first time being seen, because I had never spoke up about it. I had never talked about it. This is the first time in life that maybe somebody had ever met me where I was. And so after that moment, it's like, okay, do I have to do this? Do I have to get up and fight again? Because I don't feel like it anymore. I don't want to, but I think I have to sign up for living. And that means I have to sign up for hope. And it means I might have to get my dreams crushed again. And I was kind of dropping in and out of school because I couldn't make the grades. I was going into classes. I was having panic attacks. I was putting C for every insulin test, just running out, I was in and out of the hospital. And so I was crashing at my grandparents' place, just driving back and forth to go to school for an hour and a half every day, just to take a test. And I found that Gokey song on the radio. And I pulled over to the side of the road and said, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. Like, let's sign up. And then I downloaded it, and I would put it on repeat, and it just played nonstop until I got to school and on the way back for an hour and a half every single day. And it was like the only thing that allowed me to have a moment to breathe. Because when you're in it, you're in it. It's all like nobody can pull you out of it. You can't pull you out of it. It was kind of just music. And for a while, it was just that song. And it's been my dream to be that song for somebody else, ever since those moments. No, I've been writing songs since before I knew how to play guitar. Like I was walking around the little trailer I grew up in, just making beats on the kitchen counter and write. I didn't know what I was doing, but it just seemed to be an instinct. And and then when I got my guitar when I was about 15, first thing I did was I wrote a song. I didn't learn any covers. I just picked around, found the notes. And, I didn't know anybody that wrote songs. I didn't know you could do it for a job. I can't explain that.
Do you remember the first song that you wrote?
It was really horrible. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
What was it called?
Yeah, it was called Invincible. Which you think about it, like the deep, kind of some of the lyrics in this album, it tracks. The brand was still there even at 15. So,
Do you remember the song?
I don't remember how it goes, but I remember I wrote it for my high school girlfriend at the time, basically saying our love was invincible, and clearly it wasn't. But yeah, I thought it was gonna, make her want to marry me.
And it didn't.
No, it didn't work out. That's a great question, and I have actually probably a surprising answer, is that I don't even like being that vulnerable in a writing room. If you can imagine, as a man who grew up in the South, it's not easy, especially to go to other men and say, just vomit out everything that you've experienced. And so I think actually what's easier for me is to just pursue the poetry of the lyric and then just have it be a really fun room. And kind of explain like, hey, this is my brand. This is what I'm going for. This is a little bit of what I've been through. I try not to, bring the room down, because it's really easy to bring that room down. You know what I mean? And so I kind of try to keep it light and fun because the songs are heavy. And I think at the end of the day, like my brain's going to go there no matter what. And so I need people who also kind of keep it light, to kind of keep me back in reality. That's a great question. I think the music just led. I think the songs just led, I never set out to say, I'm going to share this particular story with this song. It was just that once the song was finished, I felt a weight lifted off of my soul. And I was like, well, if it feels like this for me to write it, then maybe it'll feel like this for someone to listen to it.
And it's coming out in September.
Yeah.
Is there anything on that album that you revealed that you're maybe having second thoughts about?
Yeah, I mean, there were some things that I was worried that I shared too early. There's a song on the album called What I Didn't Have that was just about my grandparents and them taking me in, and just the confusing dynamic of, taking my dad's room, after he passed and being called by his name, for all those years. And just this this silent, quiet house that was yet filled with love and grief at the same time. And here I was being raised in it, and so I had suffered a loss, they had suffered a loss, but yet we had each other. And so that's really like the deep, deep part of my story, my childhood, that left a lot of scars. And I was worried that it was too early to share that story, but also my grandparents are still around. They're 83 years old. And I was really desperate for them to hear that song, for them to know how much they meant to me, that they made all the difference. Like the reason that I'm here having this interview with literally my dream American Songwriter right now, it's because of their faith in me, and their consistency and their love. I played it for them. I went back home. Yeah, well, I played it for them acoustic. I just brought back home a guitar one weekend. And it was just this crazy healing moment where we all just cried and hugged. And I've seen my grandpa cry maybe twice, in my whole life. And yeah, it helped. I don't know how much I can say other than that. It helped a lot. They're the best grandparents in the whole world. And anybody else who says that's a liar, they haven't met mine. I got to take them to my Opry debut last year, and it's crazy. I mean, these are the people that introduced me to music, My papa sang bass in a gospel quartet and, grew up in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky. And so in Kentucky, people think that I just grew up around, bars and live music, Appalachia. And it's like, there actually was none of that. We grew up in a dry county, so there was no booze, and so my exposure to live music was exclusively through the church. And so my early years was just bluegrass country gospel. And so it was me riding around in a van with my mama and papa and listening to papa sing the low notes. And, my papa he's the smartest, most well-read. He has this library of books in their house. And so when I was growing up, I had access to all of these, this history of philosophy, science. And I asked him, recently I was like, Papa, why do you read all the time? Like, there's nobody around here reads like you do. He got his PhD at 70 years old. So I watched that man get his doctorate in philosophy. And I was like, why do you do this? And he said, I was looking for my sons. He's like, I had to know that I would see them again. And, my mama is just unconditional love incarnate. Like I don't think there's anything that I could do, anything that anybody could do to make her not love them. And when I go home, there's always a box full of Oreos and, whatever else that, she's like, have you eaten, you've lost weight? I'm like, I promise I've gained weight. She's like, well, you look skinny. And yeah, they're just, yeah, they're great. Yeah, my mom was present. I grew up in a broken home, and I think with my dad's addictions, and my mom also struggled with mental health issues, and we grew up extremely poor, and I didn't realize that, I think, until moving to Nashville and then kind of just seeing like, oh my gosh, like this is what money looks like, And there was like a little bit of money in my hometown. It wasn't all dead dandelions everywhere, but yeah, I had a little brother that was really sick growing up. I think a lot of that went to, medical bills. He had like 3 brain surgeries right when he was born. And so my parents, they had been swept up by grief as well. They've been swept up in just the system of like trying to always play catch up. The house we were living in when I was very young wasn't fit to be a house. And, I know that my mom loved me very much. And, I think it was just one of those circumstances where my grandparents were able and willing to open up their door to somebody who really needed help. And those early years are tough to go back to, but I can't say that there wasn't love. There was love. It was just hard. I'm pretty comfortable speaking with it. There are a few things in my history and in my family's history that are still difficult to talk about because some of it is still just difficult to know. I think when my dad passed, there were a lot of questions. How did it happen? Why did it happen? What do we want to believe is why it happened? You deal with so many people's different perceptions and perspectives and their beliefs as well. Like, well, if this happened, where's he at now? And that leaves a mark on you as a kid. And it makes you want to go with the flow with what everybody else is telling you. And so I had to do a lot of my own searching to figure out what went down. And that's the same with a lot of my childhood. I think that my grandparents, they tried their best to protect me. Now, is that to say that I didn't watch drug deals go down, that I didn't watch fights happen and people get their neck broke in front of me? No, I saw that stuff. But, when I was at my mom and papa's house, everything was cool. Everything was safe. It was just like, this is different. Nobody's yelling. There's not a hole in the wall. You know what I mean? And,
You felt safe.
yeah, I did. I still listen to that song and cry. And that sounds so weird that like I wrote the song and, I hate to admit that like I listen to some of my own songs sometimes, but sometimes it's the only place I can hear it, And it hurts because I saw him for a summer when he was sober. I got to live with him, and when he was sober, I got to experience my dad as a sober man for a while. And he was the best dad in the world. Like we were going to the park every day. We were throwing football, going to, the batting cages. And it's like, man, I want to be with my dad all the time. Like my dad's the coolest guy in the world, And I also watched him relapse over and over again. And when he got really sick towards the end of his life, he was in the final stages of addiction. And so like I watched the hallucinations, I watched the schizophrenic behavior, I watched, just like, who is this? It's just, it was hard to be around. It was hard for anybody else to be around, And I think I just wanted him to know the damage that he had caused. And I wish I hadn't said that.
Yeah, that's a hard one. When we lose our parents.
Yeah.
There's always regret,
yeah.
No matter what the situation is. And,
yeah.
You have to then live with that, but you have to know that they didn't believe those words. They knew where he knew where it was coming from.
Yeah. I think if I had known, I would have never have said it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like if I'd known this was the last,
Of course.
Yeah.
I've just recently lost my mom.
I'm sorry.
I there are things that I would have done differently had I known.
Yeah.
But you don't know, and it's awful to even think about it.
Yeah.
But don't make me cry.
I think we're doing it to each other right now. Yeah. I didn't know what therapy was then, but yeah, I think so. This is a totally different, this is a schizophrenic part of my story. But, I also was extremely avid in sports. Like I played sports all growing up. And I got really good at this thing called competitive powerlifting. And so for my body weight, I was like the strongest kid in the state. And so I did that competitively, and I went to college to pursue it at the Olympic level even. And I passed out, hit my head, woke up in a CAT scan machine, didn't know who I was. And after that, I became as obsessed with songwriting as I was with the weightlifting and with the sports. And at the time, I didn't know it was therapy, but it was the only way to get the energy out, Whereas before, I would just take my rage, and go into the gym and just, meathead everything out. With songwriting, it was a more evolved way to get it out. Yeah, absolutely. I think I learned more clearly just the voice that I want to be to my audience. I think I learned more clearly the voice that my audience wants me to be too. And I learned to just be honest and trust. I think you get caught up in, everybody in this town is chasing a dream. They moved here with whatever resources that they had to go all in on something that mattered to them. And if you do it in a competitive way, that just leaves you feeling empty and with a void in your chest. It can leave you feeling like you're not good enough anytime something doesn't work the way that you think that, But I think with the completion of this album, I'm just not going to let anybody tell me that I'm not good enough. I've heard it, and I think it's badass. And I think the reason that I made it was badass. And I think the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing is awesome. And that being said, I'm kept humble all the time. And but I try to just keep the blinders on and stay as true to myself as I possibly can. I've had a lot of different relationships over my years.
That's what I was hoping.
Yeah. And so I think the first album is just the story of your life, like how, and I've had so many different experiences in my life. And I didn't, you know, when I moved to town, everybody was writing, it's all romance, it's love and it's heartbreak, or it's, you know, party, trucks, beer, and getting rowdy. None of that felt like completely who I was. They're a piece of who I am. They're a small spectrum of who I am, but none of it was exactly who I was. And so the album didn't feel complete without songs like My Side of the Family, without songs like Lost Ones and Made It This Far. And I think also just with my papa getting his PhD in philosophy, you know, like while I was in their house growing up, it exposed me to like thinking that like big words were cool words. And so you hear me talk about like heaven and hell or like dying a lot. And because those things, it was just cool to think about those concepts, you know? It was romantic to think about those concepts. But Burn Down to Heaven was what it felt like the first time I broke somebody's heart. Sucks to be the bad guy. I hated it. I was like, if I have to feel like this, I'm just going to stay with her forever, you know? I don't want to, but I think I have to because it feels horrible, you know? But Die Trying was, you know, the moment that I met somebody when I had self-destructed and it made me want to save myself. You know, it's like you can really get in your head and self-destruct, and kind of be caught in a, you know, a rut. And just be like, yeah, I'm just living, I'm just existing, I don't have anything to work for. But you meet somebody that inspires you to, doesn't save you, because nobody can really save you. You have to do it yourself. But I think somebody can inspire you to do the work. Yeah, I think if it had just been dark, it wouldn't have been representative of where I'm at. My whole goal is to be a little bit of proof for everybody whose brain is stuck in that just continuous loop of the dark cave, of just like, I'm not worth it, I'm better off dead, I shouldn't be here anymore, everyone would just be happier if I didn't exist. Just be a little proof that you don't have to feel like that forever. And because my bridge moment, I truly believe that. I truly believe that my brain had gotten so sick that it couldn't recover. Like that it was just impossible. Like I could go to any doctor in the world. There was no fix, no matter how long it took, like it was just gone. And it took a long time of being curious and figuring out some things that worked for me particularly. And, but I feel good. Like, you know, I'm like literally chasing my dream. I'm getting to be here right now with you. Like, and I think a lot of people are there in that moment because they either want how they feel to change or they want their circumstance to change. And they haven't given themselves enough time to realize that that is a possibility. And when you sign up for life, you're open to both possibilities. It can get bad or it can be good. But if you jump, all those possibilities are gone. They end immediately. You have to leave yourself open for the human possibility that it gets better, because it can. And you have to give yourself time. You have to give yourself patience, love, kindness. Stop being so hard on yourself. It's all those things, but it takes a lot of growing. And I want to encourage people who are willing to sign up for that. I want them to be reminded of how strong they are. You know, it's like if you're going through hell right now, well, you went through hell before and you're alive. Right? Look at yourself right now. You're sitting, breathing. Look at your hands. You feel your heart beating. It's like you're alive right now. Whatever hell that you went through, you made it. You did it. And you can do it again. And I think we often forget that strength. And I think the best confidence builder is that, hey, I've been here before and I made it through. I used to tell myself, if I ever feel this bad again, I'm just going to cut the cord. It's like, well, I felt bad several times since then. And it's so much easier because I know I won before, you know? Yeah, I want people to know that, you know, you got to stick around and you're going to make it. It's going to be all right.